So soy, become the motor. Pro-designed ink wrist guards, always wear them. Blizz eyewear, design, flexibility, and value. Hey folks, and welcome to another Soy spikeboarding video. Today we are in Nyack, and here we are on North Broadway. And we're going to do a rather big loop today so that you can actually see how a little bit of warm-up is done and also how a little bit of intermediate climbing is done. And of course we'll go through some of the strokes in spikeboarding and the dynamic of how that occurs. And today we're watching none other than Coach Dan Bowen. Who's going to take us for a little spike around Nyack as we head down North Broadway. And first we're going to warm up on 1st Street, High Avenue, and Main Street just a little bit. So we're going to take a quick right here on Main Street and shoot around, and these pan flat, not completely pan flat, but with a little bit of high side, low side. This corner of Main Street is actually the lower side of these first two loops of 1st Street, High Avenue, and Main Street. Here we sweep on straight through a green light into Main Street, and Dan is seen here doing a kubi cross stroke, and there's the switch. Spikeboarding, ladies and gentlemen, is ambipedal skill set sport. It's bilateral in its physical literacy. You'll see how the athlete is exerting equal amounts and competency as well in performance on both sides of the board. You'll begin to notice as well that sometimes his left foot is in the front and sometimes his right foot is in the front. So we kick from all 4 positions. So over time you will learn how to do that. And here we are on Franklin Street shooting over, and that's the stand-up spike strokes. A little bit of an uphill, passing Gypsy Donut right there. Favorite place to stop after a little bit of spikeboarding. They've got incredible food there, and people are so nice, and their coffee is absolutely sensational. So jumping straight into High Avenue, really sensational avenue to learn how to carve switch. So carving switch involves facing either direction, and in the stand-up spike stroke we have both feet on the ground, and that's when we're carving. And here we see also Dan executing what's known as stand-up spike 1/1. So he's spiking with one arm and standing over one leg, and then combination connector into a stand-up spike stroke. A little bit of carving down this down High Avenue is always nice, and it's nice to switch carve to both sides. It's a little bit of there's the switch, a little bit of turbulent pavement here. Here we are back on Main Street, stand-up spiking, and these small little loops in the right here in the downtown area of lovely Nyack are really nice to do to warm up with before you head out to do a little bit of climbing. So there's a great deal of climbing that can be done here in the Nyack area. You can take in as much as you like, and certainly there's a couple streets that are so gosh darn steep there's no way to stand up spike them. So 5th Street and 6th Street, that berm right there is awfully steep, but you can kubi cross them. We're going to see a little bit of that as we move on through the town. And on this particular time around, a little bit of warm-up and stand-up spike for Mr. Bowen. And here's a big fat motor right in front of us, a big old Corvette. So we welcome people who can have the money to buy motors like this. You might want to also learn how to become the motor. So anyone can buy a motor, but it's much more difficult to train with strength, endurance, and balance and become a motor. Mr. Bowen is showing the kubi cross very well, and of course switching in all 4 positions, left foot forward, right foot forward. You'll notice, if you will, if you focus on his arms aren't extending fully They're remaining in a 90, as close to 90 degree position as you can, because the NARMs are simply transmission extensions from your lats and from your core. What you want, the sport is driven upper body wise, it's driven through core and lat activation. So the biceps, triceps, these are small muscle groups. They aren't going to transmit much power. You're going to have a lot more power transmission if it happens when you connect to the core. So here we've taken a little bit of a different route, and we're going to shoot up First Street. First Street is a little residential street just on the other side of High Avenue, as you locals will know, and those who are just here to visit. It's just the other side of High Avenue, and really between First Street and Main Street you can do a really nice figure 8, and this is going up a little bit. There's a tiny little rise on First Street, which makes it just lovely enough to get a little warm up when you first show up. So visitors to Nyack will enjoy this little figure 8 loop before they head out and do some more climbing up along Franklin Street toward the Marydale Faith and Life Center. And here's a little church on the corner. Look at that hedge, perfectly trimmed, super nice. And bang, then we're back on High Avenue and completing this little figure 8 warm-up circuit. And a right-hander straight back onto North Broadway, headed down to South Broadway, and we're going to take a right-hander at Cedar Hill Avenue, which has a nice little rise to continue with our warm-up. And there's a little bit of there's some stop signs. That one's green. Please follow all the traffic directions and follow the law. So stop at the lights, stop at the stop signs when it is your turn to stop. So spikeboarding behaves very similar to cycling. We're holding a line, side of the road, and just focusing on performance, endurance, propulsion, exactly like cycling. In cycling, you're trying to execute a proper spin, and in spikeboarding, you're trying to execute performance with the 2 strokes of Kubi Cross and stand-up spike. So we're headed down here. Now, by now, this is considered South Broadway. We'll take a right-hand turn here at Cedar after we stop for that light. And here's a little bit of an incline on Cedar Hill Avenue, and it can be a great loop all by itself if you want to. You can swivel around back to Franklin, take a right at Main Street, and then it has a very nice high side, low side loop. So spikeboarding is a lot like skiing in as much as there is downhill super high speed, and there's also cross-country skiing. Well, spikeboarding is like cross-country skiing, so we really choose undulating hills that aren't very big, and we're looking to not go over 30 miles an hour so that we can cadence brake and keep our speed in check. When we do climb bigger summits, there's a couple of different ways to get down. You can either get down with cadence braking, which that requires being a little more intermediate to advanced and a desire to have a pretty powerful workout, or you can combine this workout with a cycling partner, and you can get down the hill by leaning on them a little bit, or you can get a tandem bicycle. But these load times are big when you start stand-up spiking up great big mountains, so 30-40 minutes. You can also have someone pick you up at the top and bring you back. So, but folks, we're working on a break now. So if you're enjoying spikeboarding without a break, or if you're waiting for the break to be born, well, that will soon appear, and it'll be awfully nice when a fully operational disc brake arrives. And that will be a bicycle brake that we will put on the board, and it'll work. So there's High Avenue. We're just going to pass High Avenue here on Franklin and continue on our merry way, climbing steady as she goes. And Dan is showing very well how this Kubi Cross stroke thrusts on both sides of the board. So that has never been executed like this before, and now you can learn to do this, and it will perform very much like cross-country skiers. So anybody who skates a board and says this is cheating or any manner of judgment of that kind, we recommend that you focus on performance, and what performance mandates is whatever's going to be most efficient and deliver the most speed is what you want to be after. So imagine going to cross-country skiers and removing the poles from them. Well, I guarantee you that would no longer be an uphill sport. And many people know about cross-country skiing. They might even consider themselves cross-country skiers, but they are not skiing up hills. So the essence of skiing up hills requires development of the upper body, and the essence of it is in cross-country skiing is to go up hills. And these it's more quiet streets. Don't see a car. Be respectful of the local traffic, and you should be okay. So Dan's making quick work of this, saying hey to the locals, and this of course is just a moderate tempo speed, and it is constant engagement and constant lat work. So here's a 1/1. He's shifting 1/2, where he's spiking right here, one arm over two legs, and he's connecting all those strokes together. So we're going to get here to 5th Street, and here we're going to have to do a Kubi cross stroke. This incline is very, very pitched, and to actually do this guy in actually this is 6th Street, not 5th Street. Pardon me. It's residential, and here's the Kubi cross, and it is wildly effective in uphills. So whenever you get to this really uphill stuff, you're also going to want to drift your foot to the front and drive it into that drop. The board does drop, and for good reason. For good reasons actually, and one of them is when you begin to climb really steep stuff, you're going to want that drop to drive your foot straight into it as you drift forward, and it's going to be a lot more comfortable for you. There's the drift, and straight forward into that drop, and driving straight on up into the sun. It's a beautiful day today. Beautiful images here. Nyack's just a lovely, gorgeous river town in the lower Hudson Valley. And so now we're back up onto Midland, and North Midland, and we're going to just follow Midland all the way to the Marydale Faith Center. And there's just a slight little climb and a little bit of a descent as well. And these roads, all of what you're seeing here, is just slightly the beginning of intermediate. Obviously, to do the sport in traffic, you need to have some board control and not be a risk to yourself or others. And where we will begin to have clinics and demo people for the Nyack area is over at the Rockland Lake bike paths and the Rockland Lake Loop. A really good place to be. And what you're seeing there is some 1/1, and that stroke is really nice. When you go out with athletes that aren't completely matched in speed, you could go out 1/1 with your kids. They could ride a bike, or perhaps either partner has more strength. Then one partner can ride a bike, and another partner can 1/1. You can kind of still get great workouts. And that 1/1 stroke dials in probably around the 12th month or so. You're looking at an athlete with about 20 months of spikeboarding development, and Dan Bowen never ridden a skateboard in his life until he began to spikeboard at age 35. Looking at a 37-year-old athlete. And this particular little rise is really, really nice. This pavement is really smooth over here on Midland Avenue, and not a lot of heavy traffic, unlike 9W. And Dan's making quick work of climbing Midland, and it is just really, really nice over here on this avenue. And essentially, cross-country skiing, folks. You're seeing a very simplified form of cross-country skiing that's incredibly casual, and you are seeing something that has absolutely no possibility to cross your tips, nor to blow out your ankles. If you're on roller skis, you are bound to them, people. You are bound to them completely. Roller ski bindings are not quick release, and when you fall down, you tangle up in them pretty quick. And so what spikeboarding is a simplified form of cross-country skiing. And of course, cross-country skiing is incredibly dynamic and comprehensive of every functional system that the body has, of strength, endurance, plus balance. And always check your backside. Obviously, Dan just peeked over his shoulder because he was going to go around these people. And here's a little tuck as well. And that's a safety 1 position, so keeping that spike in view. Doesn't necessarily need to have it like that because we're way out in an open road. That's a neutral carry position, just holding it on carbon fiber in the neutral, always parallel to the board. And keep in mind where that spike is. That spike's trailing in the back. And that spike tip comes from roller skiing, guys, so there's nothing new and different about this spike. It's been made for over 40 years. You name the cross-country ski manufacturer, and they make that spike. It doesn't affect asphalt in any way, shape, or form. Potholes are not created by ski ferrules, skateboard spikes. They're created by massive amounts of tonnage combined with expansion and contraction from brutal East Coast winters. So you get millions of people to spike this road, and spike tips would never damage anything whatsoever. So when the spring comes and you guys see potholes that are raging large, 1 meter by 1 yard by half a yard, and they're 3 inches deep, and they're all over Orange County, in Rockland County. Just imagine that it wasn't 2 spikeboarders out there creating all those potholes. Those are created by winter people. So a spike tip does nothing. Asphalt's pretty much self-healing. When it gets hot, it just gets stomped on by tires, and the tiniest minuscule little spike tip's not going to do anything to asphalt. Now, is this road absolutely beautiful, or what, in the afternoon? It's just stunning to spikeboard in Nyack. What a beautiful, beautiful place to spikeboard. So we made it to the Marydale Faith Life Center, and then we take a right, and now here's the downhill. We have to sort of manage this, and we use this downhill on Larchdale Avenue, headed towards North Broadway, as an agility downhill. You have to mind your backside when you do these. Keep in mind what's behind you, so not too traveled road. And notice how he's just stepping over, Dan's stepping over from rail to rail, keeping the spike in a safety 1 carry, and using this downhill as an agility exercise, along with his cadence break. So the cadence break's the opposite of a kick. You want to keep your head over your shoulders over your hips, and drive your butt down toward the ground. At the same time, he's drifting. Notice how he's switching, and he's drifting, and he's riding the rails at the same time. So this exercise is right at the beginning of intermediates when you start to do this. Otherwise, you'd just be doing switch drift. You wouldn't be doing this agility drill back and forth. And so Dan's just a little bit new to it, but he's pulling off pretty darn good. And there's the bottom. Look at that scene behind him. Isn't that gorgeous? Those small, rolling, ancient lumps here in the lower Hudson Valley are beautiful when the sun is on them. And here we come down back on North Broadway, and just headed back towards town. And these little descents are mighty fine for 2/1 and 1/1. As you see here, it's also a 2/1. So the combination of all these strokes and achieving them is just really nice. So there's 2/1, and all you hockey players, spikeboarding is really, really, really fun cross training, and of course it's delicious core and stamina work. So all you field sport coaches, let your kids learn spikeboarding in the off season. Let them learn to commute with spikeboarding, and you're going to have just devils in during your season. So core and stamina is the hardest thing to develop in athletes of any age. It's just no fun to do leg lifts and planks, and it's really challenging to run stairs and sprint lines. when you could be out spikeboarding and having a great time activating every single inch of outside, inside, and head to toe. And this little run here, we've made a video here previously. Dan was wearing a blue kit, and you can check it out too. Just Google anything that says Nyack and spikeboarding, and you'll get some nice video images of all of Nyack. But also we did a beginner video. This North Main Street from Runcible Spoon to Nyack Beach Park is it's not totally beginner. You want to be able to control traffic, but when we say beginner, we mean that there's not a lot of hills and that the pavement is relatively clean and not technical. So the Runcible Spoon to Nyack Beach Park along North Broadway is great for beginners. Once you've gotten your basics down, you could do loops there all day long, and it's got just enough rise and just enough fall to really be challenging but not overwhelming for beginner spikeboarders. You saw a little hop there. You want to learn your hop, and watch some videos on the spikeboarding channel and you'll learn how to do that. You want to start on grass to do that, but you definitely want to possess a hop. You can use them at many different times when it might be a little more challenging to step over, and sometimes when you really just need to get back to your dominant side immediately for safety reasons. A hop is good. We've been seeing Dan here really driving with that 1/2, and that is a stroke that you begin to dial in after you've begun to do maybe 20-30 minutes in stand-up spike, and then you're going to finish 2 or 3 minutes with 1/1s. I remember when I started my 1/2s, pardon me, when you start your 1/2s and you're doing one arms, you're like, wow, I'm actually propelling myself with one arm. Well, actually it's not the arm, it's the core and the lat that's really driving all of this propulsion that's happening here. And of course everything happens with a Sasoi skateboard spike. It's a very unique hand tool. It's been devised by the Sasoi company. Sasoi is an acronym. Sasoi means stand up spike, and OIX are the 3 governing race symbols for spikeboarding, and the O meaning downhill, the I indicator for stand-up spike stroke, and the X indicator for Kubi cross stroke. So when we start to roll out spikeboarding races, if there's an I indicated on the race course, well then you will be stand-up spiking. So just imagine you take a turn onto, say, Midland Avenue, and it's I all the way. Well, your feet would be on the deck, and they'd never be allowed to leave. You'd be stand-up spiking. And then, of course, streets like 5th Street and 6th Street, there'd be X indicators on them, but who knows? You get about 20 feet of I or 30 feet of I. Could be very interesting. So the Sasoi company is all about becoming the motor and teaching physical literacy and combining spikeboarding as developmental cross training for all of your other motoring sports. So we don't care whether you're motoring in field sport or you're motoring in transport sport, or maybe OCR, obstacle course racing, mud runs, Spartan, and all this kind of stuff. Spikeboarding is going to train you for all those things, and we want you to focus on human mobility, but also on lifelong human movement. So learn how to cycle, and learn how to paddle on a river, and learn how to ski, and keep yourself active throughout your entire life. That's what Sasoi is all about. So it's a company that just wants to see you active, out and about, and we're starting first and foremost with the sport of spikeboarding, but certainly consider all forms of human mobility and function for yourself as you move through life. So Dan's rolling down here, getting near the end of this video. We're just gonna take it all the way to near the Edward Hopper House, and this little descent here is very nice. Here we're on the 1 cadencing on the 1s, left and right, and when you begin to do this, you really know that your coordination is starting to dial in. And again, Had you asked Dan to do this 20 months ago, he wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's a lot like any other sport. It's going to take 3 to 6 months to get yourself out of the beginner phase, and then you're going to begin your intermediate phase. Dan has a lot to look forward to in his third year especially. There'll be a massive breakthrough, and the sport will really start to dial in, and then after that, the long extended period of elite intermediate will begin, and then finally the elite, and you've just got the language of the sport completely dialed in for yourself, and you're going to enjoy it like mad. So folks, spike hard, spike often, SpikeBoarding. Please tune in more. If you have any questions, email us at info@spikeboarding.com. So soy, become the motor. Pro-designed ink wrist guards, always wear them. Blizz Eyewear, design, flexibility, and value.